Oh, let me adjust it. You know what's crazy? I've been following Shatta Story for years, and every time I think I understand him, he does something that completely changes the game. This guy has been arrested for faking his own shooting, had his Lamborghini seized in a fraud investigation, and somehow still managed to collaborate with Beyonce. But here's what gets me. Everyone talks about his controversies, but nobody talks about the kid who slept on the streets of Accra because his parents divorced. It broke him so badly that he ran away from home. That's where the story really begins. Let me paint you a picture. Charles Ni Ama Mensah Jr. was born into privilege. His father was a politician and a businessman. It shock you? His family had money, but money doesn't fix everything, does it? When his parents divorced, this kid didn't just lose his family structure. He lost his sense of security entirely. And you know what he did? He ran. Literally ran away from home and ended up sleeping rough on the streets of Kolegono. Can you imagine going from a comfortable home to sleeping under the stars because you would fall apart? That's trauma. And trauma shapes people in ways we don't always understand. But here is the thing about Shatta Wale. Even back then, he was drawn to music. While he was struggling on the streets, he was absorbing the real Ghana, the one that doesn't make it into the tourist brochures. He was learning the language of the hustle, the rhythm of survival. That street education would become his greatest asset. At 7th grade Princess Academy in Dansoman, teachers noticed something different about him. He wasn't just another student. He was performing in by the fireside at the National Theatre. Even then, he understood that entertainment was his way out. But the streets had already marked him, and he carried that edge into everything he did. Now, this is where the story really gets interesting. 2013, the year the name Shatta Wale was truly born, and it all started with controversy because that's who he really is. Picture this: the Vodafone Ghana Music Awards, and Charles shows up expecting to win Dancehall Artist of the Year. Seems reasonable, right? But he doesn't win, and instead of taking it gracefully, he goes completely nuclear. He insults the organizers, creates a media frenzy, and basically burns every bridge in the industry. Most people would call that career suicide, but Shatta Wale called it strategy because that controversy led to Dancehall King, the song that changed everything. Sometimes you have to blow up your old life to build a new one. And Dancehall King wasn't just a song, it was a statement. It was Shatta Wale telling Ghana, you tried to count me out, but I'm still here. You tried to silence me, but I'm louder than ever. The streets responded immediately. This wasn't polished industry music. This was raw, authentic, and it spoke to people who felt overlooked. But here's what I find fascinating. The name change itself tells you everything. Shatta means gangster in Jamaican slang, and Wale stands for World Alerted Lyrical Entertainer. This wasn't just rebranding, this was evolution. The scared boy who ran away from home had become the man who ran towards confrontation. You know what separates Shatta Wale from other artists? He understood something that the industry didn't want to accept. Controversy sells, but authenticity sustains. Every time he feuded with someone, every time he said something outrageous, his fan base grew stronger. Take the Stonebwoy rivalry. Most people see it as just two artists beefing, but I see it differently. That rivalry pushed both of them to create better music, to stay relevant, to never get comfortable. Competition breeds excellence even when it gets messy. And let's talk about it. Kakai in 2015. This song wasn't just a hit. It was a cultural moment. The dance moves, the energy, the way it took over every part in Ghana. Shatta Wale had tapped into something primal, something that connected with people's need to celebrate despite their struggles. But 2018's My Level, now that was genius. The song went global before most Ghanaian artists even understood what global meant. It showed that Shatta Wale wasn't just thinking about local success, he was thinking about conquering the world.
It's maybe today I don't get nothing, but tomorrow I go get something. And I go buy a motor for mama. But the enemy won't worry me, I go show all of them tragedy. No be today, we start to
2019 already. With Beyonce from The Lion King, The Gift. Let that sink in for a moment. The boy who used to sleep on the streets of Kolegono was now collaborating with one of the biggest artists in the world. But here's what I love about how this happened. It wasn't handed to him. Beyonce and her team chose him because they recognized something authentic in his sound. They could have picked any African artist, but they picked Shatta Wale. That collaboration was Grammy nominated and featured in Black is King, introducing him to audiences who had never heard of Ghana, let alone Shatta Wale. That moment validated everything he'd been saying for years. All the controversy, all the feuds, all the times people said he was too raw, too unpolished. Suddenly, none of that mattered. He was representing Africa on the biggest stage possible. But success doesn't erase your patterns, and Shatta Wale's relationship with controversy never ended. 2021 brought the fake shooting incident. He literally pretended to be shot and got arrested for causing fear and panic. Now, most people looked at that and said, this guy is crazy. But I see someone who is so used to fighting for attention that he doesn't know how to exist without drama. When you spent your whole life having to scream to be heard, it's hard to remember that sometimes you can just speak. The consequences were real. A week in remand, 100,000 Ghana cedis bill, massive damage to his reputation. But even then, his fans didn't abandon him. The Shatta movement stood by him because they understood something that critics didn't. This wasn't just about one incident. This was about a man who has been fighting his whole life and sometimes fought even when he didn't need to. 2025 brought another challenge. Yoko seizing his Lamborghini US in connection with the US fraud case. The headline screams Shatta Wale in fraud scandal. But when you look deeper, it's about a car linked to someone else's crimes. He was detained, billed for Ghana 5 million cedis, and denied any involvement. But here is what struck me. His fans protested peacefully, not riots, not chaos, peaceful protests. That tells you something about how he's involved and how his movement has matured. The angry young man who used to solve everything with confrontation has learned that sometimes dignity speaks louder than drama. And even while dealing with legal issues, he's still creating. Street Crown, remix Vibes Cartel, hit 21 million views. He's selling out 2,800 capacity UK shows twice in a month. He's studying brands and marketing at the University of Ghana. This is a man who refuses to be defined by his controversies. Wale, mama, hey. Here is what fascinates me about Shatta Wale. He is simultaneously his own biggest enemy and his own greatest advocate. His controversies cost him opportunities, but they also keep him relevant. His feuds damage relationships, but they also prove his passion. His authenticity sometimes hurts his brand, but it's also why sometimes people trust his brand. He's worth an estimated $6 to $10 million, making him one of Ghana's richest musicians. He's launched Shakzi, a ride-hailing app to create youth employment. The Shatta Foundation does philanthropy work. This isn't just an artist. This is an entrepreneur who happens to make music. But beyond the money and the business ventures, Shatta Wale represents something important: the power of refusing to give up. Every time the industry wrote him off, he came back stronger. Every time controversy threatened to end his career, he turned it into fuel for the next chapter. Wale, 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 wale. I'm not going to pretend that Shatta Wale is perfect. His views can be excessive, his statements sometimes cross lines, and his relationship with controversy is complicated. But here is what his story teaches us. First, your background doesn't determine your future, of course. The boy sleeping on the streets became the man collaborating with Beyonce. Trauma can break you, or it can forge you into something stronger. Second, authenticity matters more than perfection. Ghanaians connect to Shatta Wale because he's never pretended to be anything other than who he is. Flaws and all. In an industry full of manufactured images, his rawness is refreshing. Third, reinvention is always possible. Bandana failed, but Shatta Wale succeeded. When one version of yourself isn't working, you have the power to become someone else. And finally, controversy isn't always negative if it serves a purpose. Shatta Wale's drama wasn't random. It was strategic, designed to keep him in conversations when others wanted to forget him. So where does this leave Shatta Wale's legacy? Is he Ghana's misunderstood genius or its most problematic export? Is he an inspiration or a cautionary tale? I think he's both, and that's what makes him human. He's shown that you can rise from nothing, that you can survive your worst mistakes, and that success doesn't require you to abandon who you are. But he's also shown that unresolved trauma can manifest in destructive ways, and that sometimes our greatest strength can become our biggest weaknesses. And maybe that's enough. Maybe the point isn't to be perfect. Maybe the point is to be real, to keep creating, to never stop fighting for your place in the world. What do you think? Is Shatta Wale a cautionary tale or an inspiration? Drop your thoughts below and let's keep this conversation going. Because one thing I know for sure, whether you love him or hate him, you can't ignore him. And isn't that exactly what he's always wanted?
I love you so much. Hey, the girls are singing too much. We cheat our life.